Casual Magic has been brought to you by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can get cool stuff. Use the code CASUAL to get 5% off of your sale. And then also by Coalesce Apparel, where you can get really cool t-shirts and stuff, and use the code CASUALMAGIC to get 10% off your sale. And by Archidect, a deck hosting website that doesn't really sell anything, but they like me and I like them, so kindly use them. And now, on to the show. Hello and welcome to Casual Magic, the show where we talk about the fun side of Magic the Gathering. My name is Shivam and Bhatt, and Casual Magic is brought to you by Coalesce Apparel and Design, Cool Stuff Inc., and Archidect. They love me, I love them, so y'all should love them too. Today I have a returning guest, one of my dearest friends in the community, probably the best person you should know, and the person you should have in your corner at all times, unless her knee is on your throat, at which point you probably deserve it anyways. My beloved dear friend, Olivia Gobert-Hicks, fellow Cagnolite streamer. How's it going, sis? Welcome back.
What the hell introduction is that?
It's all with love.
Hey, buddy, it's great to be back. I think.
Look,
you set a very awkward tone with knees on necks like 30 seconds in, my guy.
So if you guys want to know, the last time I had her on was episode 14, way back at the beginning of lockdown, when Olivia was telling us what it was like to do a thing called play EDH over webcam. An idea that seemed to have legs.
Oh, it's the damnest thing, right? Oh my goodness.
Huh, fancy that.
Go figure. I couldn't have been onto something. No.
So, my dear friend, what's it feel like to be the savior of Magic the Gathering?
Now, I will be fair. There were people doing it before me. MTG Lexicon has been on streaming longer than I have. But I was doing it before the pandemic because all my friends lived far away. I wouldn't call myself that. But maybe someone who just at least lit the path of like, hey, just because we're locked inside doesn't mean we have to stop playing.
You know, we call you guys pathfinders, right? Like you're the one who knocks down the vine so that we can follow.
You know what I'll take Trailblazer.
Trailblazer, there we go. Like, yeah, you infinite tokens and spell table basically saved Magic. Let's be honest. Like, because it sure as hell wasn't going to be Arena.
Thank you. Thank you. I will take the compliment I would never give to myself. Fair.
But seriously though, it's been rad to watch, kind of like, because like the reason this show exists is because you told me to get off my butt and like go
true,
solo
actually.
and do a thing.
Yeah. I remember that.
You, Tappy, and Prof basically sat me down and were like, hey, you know what? You're good at talking to people. And you know what would be better? If you did it on your own brand. And I was like, maybe I
remember,
should.
No, it was funny. I remember chatting with you about it. And I was like, I think we'd make a great team, but I'm not going to do this.
Yeah, this was supposed to be the Shivam and Olivia show. And literally you were like, you know, what if it wasn't? I was like, what if it wasn't?
And look at you now.
Look at me now.
Thriving.
127 episodes in. I've the most consistent I've done anything in my life.
That's not true.
Well, okay, that's not true, but it's pretty close though.
In your non personal relationship.
In my fun timey life.
Right.
This is like
in hobby life.
Yeah. But it's because of folks like you and Tappy keep continually kicking me in the ass and telling me
Listen, someone's got to, right?
You know what?
I mean,
I cannot tell you how many times you have texted me to say, hey, put your phone down. No, I mean it. Both accounts.
It's true. Like, no. You're very passionate and you need everybody to know exactly what you're talking about. And you're on the worst possible medium to do that.
Boy, am I.
You're like, hey guys, you know what I love? Shovels. You know what I love even more? Digging. So
Delve is my personal mechanic.
Every now and again, you need a friend to be like, hey buddy, you know what's great? Taking breaks. You should maybe just do that. Water's cool. Putting the shovel down's cool.
Literally doing anything else.
I mean, standing outside and contemplating the meaning of existence, all great. You should
even stand inside. Just put the damn phone down.
Too, whatever it takes. I mean, it's been a wild 2 years, right? Like, we all are slightly broken. There's just
Boy.
something that is irreparable about what's happened to us having that amount of time not with people and
'Cause you know
in
what extroverts deal with
yeah,
really well?
yeah, we
Being locked down.
yeah, we're real good at it. And by real good, we go a little crazy.
Oh my god.
Just a
It's
little.
not
That's why I have a 2.5-year-old yeast colony that I make bread from.
Dude, did you hear that my sourdough starter died?
Yeah, I know. I don't
It's like,
understand how you
dude,
manage that.
okay, so this is literally like the worst day of my life. It's like, so my
I love
father-in-law passes, my
casual
sourdough
magic.
dies,
My
and I'm like,
sourdough's dead.
and I'm just like, what do you want from me, world? I have nothing left
Everything
to
you
give.
loved was taken away that day.
Like, right? And I'm just like, this is a villain story, is what this is.
You know what was gonna happen is we were gonna ban SRAM too, but we
Right?
held back.
Yeah, it's like, it turns out we're just gonna be banning all soldier
Oh
tokens.
my
You're just
god.
up a crown. Like, no,
Soldiers are no longer legal in
you can only
Commander.
play CDH. It's like, no.
Boros is banned.
Oh my god.
Oh lord.
uh
Someone's gonna take this out of context and be like,
we
"See
don't
what
get to
Olivia
ban
wants to do
things,
in Commander.
people.
She's the worst."
Yeah, seriously though, like,
Ugh.
I mean, being on the CAG alone is such a weird. It changes the way you look at Magic. Not only Magic, but just the community. Because
I
now
mean,
suddenly,
I feel like it does and it doesn't. I think it's not that it changes how I look at it. It's that I just have to look at it with a critical eye
mm,
instead of feeling like I need to be as enmeshed in it as I was before. I mean, not to say that I'm not, but it's I don't know, it gives you like it kind of forces you to maybe like, well, let me rephrase that. It forces me to wait an extra second before hitting tweet. But like
subtweet
I
me in real life, why don't you?
I'm saying it how is this subtweeting? I'm telling you to your face like I'm looking at you through a camera and telling you making this very clear it's about you. Um no, I think it's something that didn't necessarily like change my interactions or like how I viewed the community. It was one of it was that oh, you know what I should be doing instead of just reacting? Like I can still react and have my feelings and my thoughts as my own, but also maybe just file away that other tidbit I got or like give it a little bit more analysis even if you don't agree or it's something that is kind of like top level popping off superficial discussion to kind of internalize just what other people's
Mm,
perspectives are and why they might have them. Not again that you have to agree or disagree with them, but that you just become more cognizant of the fact that
right.
there are so many perspectives. I mean, hilariously, looking at YouTube comments today from a video I was in that got released is like the gamut because I didn't throw a game, but I made an outrageous play that had no business existing just to dunk on somebody else who of course is a friend. I'm confident in the reaction. Like I knew what I was doing. It wasn't an untrusted table. I knew exactly how it was going to be received by the person I was playing with because I've played with them before, because we have an established relationship.
Right.
And like seeing the gamut of reactions to my choice even in that context is like, wow, okay, there are people with some very different perspectives on what fun is, on
Mm-hmm.
how a game is quote unquote meant to be played, on what the actual like drive is in sitting down at a pod, what people's expectations are, what they feel is hilarious or what they think is a total dick move. It's something that you become more aware of and that you
Mm-hmm.
pay attention to things that maybe you would have just kind of dismissed out of hand when
Mm-hmm.
you didn't have that responsibility. And now it's like, okay, I may still completely disagree with what they said, but this is a perspective that's out there, right? And of course, this
Right.
applies to like card games and not like human rights. But
Sure.
you know,
Well,
all
yeah, but I
things
mean, that
considering that we're talking about a luxury of a hobby that costs money and takes all this other stuff into consideration. Like it's good to be aware that there is this very large spectrum outside of like whatever your group is that you came up in, right? So I think
yes.
it's changed it in making you be more analytical of what other people say, but not
Yes.
necessarily shifting your own perspectives.
Absolutely. I think that's actually that's been my experience as well, which is that it's like it's not changing who I am or what I want
Mhm.
out of the game or when I sit down, how I play the game. What it has done is shown me that there's a very big difference between these are the things happening at my table and these are the things that the format cares about as a whole.
Right.
And like it's shown me that if I have problems here or if people are coming to me, it's like, hey, you know what? Paradox Engine was awesome at our group. And I'm like, okay,
Mhm.
how many people are in your group? Well, 5. Okay.
Right.
What about the grandmasters of the other people? It's like, well, they should get used to it.
I
That's
mean,
where we differ, right?
right. I think like my biggest thing as far as kind of, you know, what the biggest impact the CAG and the RC have is that very first game with the brand new pod. Like that's
Mhm.
really kind of the tone we're trying to set, right? Is once you've established your rapport with your group or this group that you're going to, start playing with in the future or whatever you and your friends do what you want. That's the part where we mean like it's your kitchen table. We're not going to come and force this. Like play what you want to play. You guys don't want to ban Paradox Engine at your kitchen table. Don't ban Paradox
Great.
Engine. Play it. Have the best time. It's just setting the tone and setting the standard for brand new person, new LGS, new pod. We're all on the same page.
That's exactly kind of I think that has been my biggest, like, learning since joining this group has basically been, what does it mean to have like, what are we actually here to try to do?
Mm.
Like, what is the point? It's not just like you and
What's
your
our
buddies are
metric
hanging
for
out.
success, right?
Right. Like, my goal is if you sit down at a table full of random people, you guys should be able to figure out what kind of game you wanna play. If it's not right for you, get up and go find another one, and then at the end of it, feel like you spent your time well.
Yeah. I mean, like, I would say, I don't know. I feel you weren't at Vegas, but you were at Richmond. We both
Yeah.
were. I feel like I found more often than not that a lot of the discussions that we have online about like how rule zero is supposed to go, this, that, and the other is all very like, yes,
It's academic. It's
it's
like a
academic,
lot
but
of just
it's also really anecdotal, right?
yeah,
Like obviously we can sympathize with someone who's like, no matter what I try to bring to the table, it's a fucking, excuse me, sorry, it's an arms race. It is, I can't ever like just play my pet cards. It always feels like I'm outclassed, whatever. But I feel like once we got out in the wild, like at Richmond and Vegas, it was very easy to kind of get a
yeah,
good game experience of just like sitting down and then people would just, instead of just being like, I'm playing this, here's how my deck goes, it would be like, what are you guys in the mood for? Here are the commanders I have. And
exactly.
people just kind of pick something. They're like, Brian and I were sitting at a game in Vegas with two, like fans that had come up and were like, are you guys looking for, two other players? And we're like, yeah, what the hell? Let's just jam a game. Let's do it. We weren't looking for anybody, but like, yeah, what the
Sure,
hell?
why not?
So we sat down and we played. And as we're sitting there discussing like what we're gonna do, I'm just like, I'm just gonna play, Wind Grace. It's lands. It works or it doesn't. And so the girl next to me was saying like, or Brian says, I was thinking about playing Rurik Thar, and obviously that's all creatures and just dings you for playing
Yeah,
anything but. And she's like, my deck has virtually no spell or no creatures in it. And he's like, all right, cool, so I'll play something else. And that was it. That was all
right.
that's all that needed to happen. Everyone's like, oh, okay, cool, no problem. Like, I want you to like get something out of this
That's
and play
exactly
a
I mean,
game.
like,
And I
the
feel like we've gotten so, again, this is all part of being broken from the pandemic. We've all gotten to this
we're
headspace of
deep
like,
in theory craft.
we're theory crafting and we're just afraid and like forgot how to interact with people. And then once you
Yes.
have to do it again, it's like, oh, this wasn't as bad as I thought.
Yeah, because
And
like,
because
seriously,
everybody's out to try and have a good time. Like
right.
we did. It was a great game. Brian played Ur Dragon and still smashed us, but everybody got to turn stuff
We
sideways
gotta
or do
work on
a
the fact
thing.
that
And
his decks are only face
no,
smashers.
we
Every deck
I'm
he's
not
got is like
taking
I mean,
that's not my responsibility anymore. I've
they're
given
all
up.
my kind of decks, but they're all
I
just token
understand.
spam I mean, like, I
He's
love
just
everything he does.
I
I'm the
hate
biggest fanboy, come
Shane,
on.
I hate to break this to you. He's just actually kind of good at magic.
Yeah. Yeah. Turns out a hall of damn it. But
I
you know
know,
what? We'll
he's
work on it.
actually
I would
kinda
get
good
him
at
a
building
pillow
decks.
deck.
It's really frustrating,
Yeah, like, we
especially
need
when all
to
my good cards disappear because 'cause they're going into his decks.
that's rough.
Yeah,
That's real
well.
rough. But you're right though. Like at Richmond, when I would sit down to play with people, they'd be like, "Hey, I brought blah." Do you have anything that can match this? Or it's like, "Oh, you know what? I just built this deck. I'd like to test it out. Are you guys okay with that?" And everybody's
Yeah.
like, "Sure, let's go. I'll bring this thing out," or something.
Everybody, every interaction I had was mega chill. I
And,
think
like, I think
my biggest problem slash regret is that so many people that wanted to get a game in, you can't. There's just not enough time.
the I can't tell you how many times during
I
the
had to
Richmond.
say no to so many people are just like not have the stars aligned to sit
Right.
down at a table with it. It's so
Okay, dude,
frustrating because that's
me and
why we're
Saffron
there.
Olive
We're there to do that, and then you can't, and it's the
Saffron
worst.
Olive and I for 4 days were like, "Alright, we're gonna play a game," and
Nope,
literally did not once
nope.
because we were always just off sync.
Ships passing in
But
the night with Commander
the
games. You
worst thing in the
can't
world
schedule
is
them.
being into Commander because every Commander game takes 2 hours and you can't
Or
or
or it
normal.
takes 20 minutes and you've
Yes,
moved on to somewhere else by the time the other person's
right,
done, you're halfway through the new one. I know,
and
it's
we
the
just
worst.
can't, like, there's no way to get I mean,
You can't schedule them,
if we
right?
were into,
Because,
like,
like
60 card Magic, we could line people up and just nail
okay,
them out.
but let's be real. We had the 60 card Baldur's Gate draft experience, like, how many of those games went to turns?
Those games were
That's what I
so
heard too. They
goddamn
were
long.
so grindy and long.
After 1, I was just like, I can't handle this. I wanna play,
It
like,
was a lot. That was
it
intense.
was yeah, those games the toughnesses are way too high in this. But I am super looking forward to going to Orlando and being able to play with the full box seal deck. That's gonna be
Oh,
pretty
yeah,
cool.
that'll be really
Yeah.
interesting to see how that works out. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be like playing boxing league with everybody. But
Yeah, which does sound cool.
yeah, but you know what though? It's like I think the thing that's most heartening about coming out of these events and stuff is like all of this stuff that we're sitting and yelling at each other on Twitter and Reddit about is all just a bunch of like academic and like just theoretical nonsense. Because when you actually
Right.
sit down to play, people are totally down. I mean, there were people like, "Yo, I've got 3 CDHX and I brought a casual deck." I'm like, "Great, can I see your casual deck?" Or I sat down in a pod with like Krim and Brad Nelson and some other people.
Mm,
They're like, "So we're playing a bunch of high end decks." I'm like, "Okay, well, I brought Corvault. This is my high end deck. Let's
yeah,
go." And it was super
yeah,
there's no sweat, and if there
yeah.
ever was, I'm like, "Can I just borrow your deck for whatever you guys are playing?"
Right,
And
right.
everybody was down. It was
And of
rad.
and of course, it's not like to negate the problems that anybody has, that they
Right.
are,
Of
like,
course not.
airing their grievances of, like, "Why can't I get this problem fixed?" Because we like, let's be real.
Sure.
Twitter is certainly a spot where we try to all connect in a certain way, but sometimes it's like, I need to shout into the void, but no, there's at least one other, like, ear in the void that can hear this. And,
Yeah.
like, so it's not to discount anybody's frustrations with
Sure, of course.
their local pods or
But it's
anything they
still
run
it's
across, but, like, in the aggregate, it feels like the equation is very different.
and it feels good to see that people are taking this to heart, that people are actually considering what the other
Mhm.
players at the table want.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
all I'm asking you to do.
I was chatting with, Rachel Weeks at Vegas, and I was like, "What's
Yeah, I
the
love
kind of
her.
feedback you're" I know she's an absolute all-star. I was asking her, like, "What kind of feedback are you getting from stuff?" She's like, "Honestly, it's pretty positive, like, overall. All the pods that she's been in, real good, except for one, and it was more of a miscommunication than it was, like, malice, and so everybody
Right.
was kinda like, alright, well, it happens." And just so like in Vegas, people would come up and like ask for a picture or a signature, and I'd just be like, yes, on the condition you tell me how your event is, tell me about your last pod, tell me this,
Yes.
tell me that. And I kept not hearing anything about like, oh, people were pub stomping. It was only like, no, everybody's been pretty cool. The game's been
Right.
really nice. Like we just sit down and people show up. So like the entire discussion, like with a bunch of us turned into afterwards of like, okay, yeah, but how do we make it easier for people to find each other? When they get their check-in stuff, do they get a little like LFG flag that they can walk around with and be like, someone can get them and be like, oh, hey, we need a fourth. Come on in. So that's kind of what it
That's
went
not
to.
a
But for
terrible idea.
that to end up being our like big takeaway is like, how do we make it easier for people to find more games?
Right.
That's good. Instead of it being like,
Yes.
oh no, what happened? Everybody's mad.
People the people were really good about sorting themselves out. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, there were so many CDH games, there were so many casual games. I mean, I did hear a lot of people saying things like, "Yo, the floor of, like, power levels is
Has
still
gone up a
higher,"
bit. Yeah.
and I'm like,
Yeah.
"Okay, that's fair,"
It is.
but it was never, like, unreasonable
No.
or, like, it was never a position where you were like, "Well, I just can't find a deck find a game," right?
I didn't hear a lot of feedback that people weren't able to like compete with like say a precon or a pet deck that's
Yeah,
not necessarily built well, but it's built to do one janky thing great.
sure.
Like I didn't really hear many complaints of like I wasn't allowed to participate in the game because of that,
Right.
which rules. That's very cool.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
I want
I
everybody to be able to play.
I think the thing with the, like the floor of power levels going up is because that's what people see, right? Like and it's not out of malice or badness on any content creator, on any streamer. That's what's entertaining, is seeing the big splashy plays, is
Right.
being able to like have interaction, to do this, to do whatever it may be that you're, like attracted to as far as like consuming. It means that people know about good stuff. It means that people find out about those, janky combos. It means that people find out, oh, this creature is really good. Here's some really good old tech, some old synergy. And so, like, yeah, the floor is kind of raised up, because if that's what the exposure is, if that's what you're seeing, and it's like, okay, well, this feels like this is kind of, what's going on, then it's easy to mimic it. That's the kind of stuff you can find. Or even just seeing something like, let's be real, Commander has access to all but 42 cards. Our ban list is very small. So that's a lot of ground to cover for anybody. And if you're not someone that's super invested, but still very much an invested player, it's so difficult to try to parse through everything that we've got. So when you see something cool online or from your favorite content creator, like, of course you want to like, oh damn, this is awesome. Like, I love this. I want to snag
one
it.
of my absolute favorite decks, my Hapatra deck, I literally stole off of a Josh Lee Kwai deck that he built for a command for
Right.
game nights, because I'm like, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. I want to build that deck.
Exactly.
There's no shame in that. That's rad. Do it.
It totally is. There's no shame in it at all. And so because of that, I feel like, since that's what we have exposure to the most, stuff that is entertaining and big and splashy and having this huge impact, just because it's so widely disseminated, that it makes sense that both between that and the stuff that's getting printed, which, let's be real, between early Magic and now is night and day.
Well, I mean, did you see that stat the other day that like 20% of commanders have been printed in the last 2 years?
I know. The fact that I used to know like every legendary creature when I was new, and I was like, man, I'm going to be so good at Commander.
Okay, dude.
I was never that great.
I cannot tell you how many times I've posted a random card.
I used to be able to know all the legendaries in a set. There's no chance. They come out every 2 weeks. What am I supposed to do?
Yeah, and they're in like set booster exclusives. And dude, I remember there's a time now where I'll just post
7 arts for everything too. I can't even tell them from just looking fast.
Dude, I post a Scryfall random.
Magic Boomer, everyone listening, I'm so sorry. I'm yelling at people to get off my lawn. I apologize.
Yeah, but I'll post a Scryfall random, and then people will be like, "Oh man, that's gonna be great," and Grumflaggle, and I'm like, I don't know that legend.
Gesundheit. What the hell are you talking about?
They're like, oh yeah, it was in the set booster exclusive for the secret lair that just came out yesterday. I'm like, what?
I missed that one.
Give me a chromium, please.
What was it? I played something the other day just on Elder Dragon Hijinks with Ailey. She's like, oh, I've never seen that card. I was like, really? Like, what do you mean you've never seen this card? I was like, this is ancient.
Dude,
I would argue that she is almost a little bit more in, because she's been on the competitive side and done
commentary wild?
And all this other stuff. Like,
it blew my mind how recently Ailey has joined Magic.
Yeah, no, I'm thoroughly intimidated.
Like, I'm like, how did you get to this from like
I don't
2
even know
years
if
ago?
I could log on to Arena anymore. Like, I'm just out. I am a paper boomer.
I love that every time I tell people, like, Olivia got into Magic by playing Two-Headed Giant 4-pod Commander,
and everybody's like, 8-person pod of all time.
What the hell does that even mean? And I'm like, exactly
what you think it means. Each player in the game was 2 people, and there were just 4 big giants.
Of all the ways to get into, that's like the most complicated way.
No, it's not. So everybody tells me that. Everyone's like, oh my God, how could you?
But I think it was like somebody could help you at least.
I literally had like a 12-year veteran of playing the game sitting next to me. Here's why you play this. Okay, so you see how they like don't have anybody? You should swing in for that. Like, literally step by step explaining to me what things are, why they matter. And for me, at least, that was insanely helpful. I think I played 2 games with kind of like a partner in crime kind of helping me out. The first one was the 8-person monstrosity pod, the Hydra pod. And then the next one I think my buddy gave me his mono black Mikaeus deck to run. Oh no, that was in the pod. And then I got a Prosh deck for myself. I literally got it. They handed me a precon. And I was like, so what do I do? He's like, you turn things sideways and you kill stuff. And I was like, all right, tight.
Sold. Let's go.
I mean, as far as I was concerned, so, like, I started buying, like, my own cards, and hilariously, when I first did this was what, 2014? I was like, "I would never pay more than $10 for a Magic card. That's ludicrous," and I'm like,
It
"Sweet,
says the
sweet
lady
inno
who's got a
sweet
freaking
sweet
Yoshitaka
innocent soul."
Amano Liliana.
It's not a foil one. Calm down. I bought the full set of Japanese walkers from a Japanese magic store before they came out.
That was the
And
smartest
I
decision.
know. I was like, "I'm not
Holy
chasing
crap.
these War of the Spark Mythic editions. No, I'm going to have the fancy art." And so that's what I did. I got one of each of those. They all came to me, and
I
they were
have the
sold
mythic
out of the
editions.
Lilianas forever, and then I finally managed to snag one, and I have a complete set, and I will never have the foil one. I have accepted this, and it makes me cry a little every time.
Yeah, there's always gonna be the
That's my
one
chase. That's my one.
look, I
I had
got a
the
Beta Soul
opportunity to get
Ring.
one
That
for
was my, like
I had an opportunity to get one for sub $1,000 in Gen Con in 2019, and I did not because I did not want to get into a fight with my spouse. And
fair.
well, is
Regrets.
it?
Dude, you know what my regret is? At Vegas 2016, I was like, "Oh, man, $80 for a cradle? I don't wanna pay that."
The
Regrets.
brutality.
Regrets.
One of my
Ugh.
cradles was sold. We're playing Commander. Why would we need 2?
The pain, the heartache.
I know.
But,
It's fine. I still have one. I bought it in a collection from a friend,
and
so
you and I are both getting very close to finishing our inventions at
yeah, how
least.
far away are you?
I'm, like, about 10 or 12 away, maybe?
Oh,
No.
shoot, you're closer than I am, I think.
Oh, I don't know. I think I might be
I
closer
think
on
you're
in
closer numerically, but probably not dollars-wise.
no, because 'cause I'm missing, like, Soul Ring.
Yeah,
Like
but you have
I'm missing
Crypt? 'Cause
do
that
I
one's a
would
grand too.
I got
'Cause
I got
Vault's, like,
cr
almost 500 now.
yeah, I got Vault early. I traded for Vault a long time ago, but
I traded for my ring. I traded
yeah,
a foil metal worker for my ring for the soul ring and a strip mine,
y
invocation strip mine.
let's see, what am I missing? I'm missing Mox Opal, Chrome
I got one of
Mox,
those.
like
I don't have a Chrome Mox either. Oh,
yeah,
I'm
and
straight up pulling up my Google Drive.
yeah, I'm
I
looking at my spreadsheet
I
right
literally
now.
have a spreadsheet for these. Yes, because when I bought a bunch of mine, I was over in Europe, and God, when was this? Like 16 or 17. So they were still fairly recent. So it
Yeah,
wasn't like the spike hadn't happened yet. There wasn't too much speculation on them. I mean, like obviously they were still expensive, but like they weren't as wild as they are now. And they were so much cheaper over there because like it was funny hearing it from Brian. He's like, "Oh, even if they're flat, if there's a deck of cards, I can pull the foils out every time, like just by touch." I'm like, "You're insane." Well, apparently there are a lot of people like that. I've traumatized my
you and me
hands
are
too.
not those
I've
people.
traumatized my hands too much from being a jeweler anyway, because I probably at
Yeah,
some point in time would have been able to do that, but my fingertips have just been singed. I have no feeling anymore. I apparently most of the players in Europe have the same sensitivity slash are very, very astutely like a foil card is marked for all intents and purposes.
yeah,
So the invocations were cheaper over there because not everyone was hunting for them.
mhm.
So I managed to snag a fair amount while I was there.
I am
I still
looking at
spent
my
too much
list.
money and was like, "Oh my god, how many hours of overtime do I need to make this up?"
4, 5,
And
7, 8,
let's see. So
9,
now
10,
and then I
11,
went
12.
to an
I'm
event.
12 away.
Okay, I went to an event and I almost bought like 3 that I already had because I just couldn't remember. So I said almost. I was like, "Oh, I should think about these." And I went home and flipped through my binder and was like, "I'm so glad I went home and thought about these because I already own them and I'd be out money." And I was sad. I'm at so I've got leads on 5, but I have 16 left.
Yeah, like, that's the thing, though, like, the 3 that I'm missing that are the most are, Chrome Mox, Mox Opal, and Soul Ring, and I'm
Yeah, I
like,
have
"Ugh."
Chrome Mox, Cloudstone Curio is gonna get me. The Lotus Petal, one's expensive, and Sword of Fire and Ice. Those are the real big uns
Yeah, I
that
got
are
the
left.
swords early, but Soul Ring, man, because that was the thing,
That's the only sword I don't have is SoFi.
I went to because I went to Vegas this year, or
Mhm.
when we had Vegas,
Back in
the
November,
first
yeah.
one, last fall.
Yeah, November.
Yeah.
November Vegas.
I
It was
went
like
to
the
that
week
one with
before
the
Thanksgiving.
yeah, I went to that one with the intention of trying to buy a Mox. I was like, "I'm gonna sell 1,000,000,000 cards and buy a Mox," and I came up, like, with a brick of money, but I was short a Mox, but then I was looking at the deal, and I was like, "I could buy a Beta Soul Ring and an Invention Monocrypt? Okay.
I
I guess I will
mean
live that dream
I
instead."
mean, there's that.
But it was wild. I was like, "I can buy
Yeah.
this beat up, like, revised Underground Sea or a pristine beta Soul Ring.
Yeah.
Huh.
The amount of
Maybe.
wheeling and dealing I've had to do to get these inventions is
Oh,
non-zero.
dude, I
Like,
believe. Because this is like the inventions are like the inventions and the stupid expeditions are basically the only thing I try to collect anymore. Because I'm like,
the inventions I think are I have the Japanese
and that's
walkers,
because you and I
and I
both
think
play
it's the
Breya, and we need
inventions.
to have.
Yeah, exactly. I need the shiny.
Yeah,
Um, so I mean, like, that's my thing, right? So, like, my planeswalker is obviously Liliana, and then I have a bunch of legendary women, so it's, I mean, Breya's
I
me.
love Breya so
I know,
much.
she's so
Such a good deck.
good.
I,
I don't even care about the combo stuff. Like, I forget about it all the
no,
time. I just love
I
her.
like it because the fact that every time I play it, I'm like, oh, this card does these things.
Yo, I found like an infinite colored mana combo that I thought I was missing in there like 2 years into having the deck. Finally, the right board state coalesced, and I was like, "Oh, wait a minute," because I didn't build it with that in mind, right? Like, I
Right.
built like a bunch of other
I
win
just
cons
threw a
into
bunch
it.
of pieces in there and see what
Yeah,
comes up,
exactly.
right?
That's
It-
Breya is like my one piece where it feels like thought went into it as far as like actually winning the game. The rest of them are like, I have a goal. I have a success condition, not a win condition, a success condition. And it's things like drawing myself out while showing the board I could kill them all, but instead I need to go eat lunch. So that was part of the reason why I built Atraxas. I was like, how stupid is Enchantress triggers? Like, are those
Oh,
insane? I think I'm gonna see if they're insane. And I
they
put Atraxa
sure
at the
are.
helm, and I was like, oh no, what have I done? And it's one of my favorites, and
Dude,
also something that makes some people incredibly angry.
I
It's
have now 2
amazing.
Enchantress decks because my
Oh.
Tuvasa is just standard, Voltron, load her up with auras, and then Mozzie came out, and I got her at the PPR that I did for Baldur's Gate,
Right.
and I
And
was
then
like,
you borrow which one? You took the etched mossy that we
"Yes, I
opened
did."
together, right? Yeah.
Yeah, because I was like, "I love this deck, it's super fun, it puts auras on your creatures," and I'm like, "This is
Yeah.
so cool."
I'm building Breya curses right now.
Oh, that sounds
It's
rad.
Breya Enchantress. I don't use Breya at all. There's like no artifact synergy in there. It's 100% curses and auras.
That sounds a blast.
I'm almost done and I'm really excited to
That
play.
sounds
It's one
really
of those things I
weird.
can't do it. Well, that's why I wanted to do it. Like, what the fuck? It makes
Yeah,
no
like,
sense.
Breya's, like,
Sorry.
the most she's the most
I know.
artifacty lady there is.
I know, but she's also, since I can't retcon a Nephilim, she's that color combo. So here we are. And I didn't want to do partners because they were all like, because it's
Oh,
what, like Ravos or like Crom Ludovex Opus and stuff. And it's like,
yeah, it's like, then
it's
it gets
not the right
CDHy and things.
feel. I should just make it be me. It'll just be Breya being mad at people. That feels better. So that's what it
Cursey
is.
Breya. You should get
Yeah.
that curse chick, but she's only 3 colors, so
She's in there.
oh, well, that makes sense.
Well, but that was part of it. Is it was just like everyone. But see, that was the thing that led me away from her. Is that's what you expect seeing Lind.
Yes,
You
because that's
expect
exactly what she does.
curses, which is why I was like, but I could make it Breya, which is why when I said Atraxa down at the table, everyone's like, oh, great, super friends are infect. I'm like, nope, neither. Like, this is dumb shit deck. I can't wait to show you how fast I can leave the game. I understand completely why certain commanders get hated off the table, which is kind of why I think it's fun to brew around them with something that makes no sense for what that card
Absolutely
is.
none at all.
I mean, like, honestly, the dumb crafting of things that are nonsensical but are a pile of,
Yeah,
it actually kind of worked.
I
That
love
about a
that.
commander.
You and I are very similar in the way we approach this game,
I know.
but which is why I think we get along. But also we get along because we're friends.
Well, there's that.
But you did mention though, and we should talk about briefly the fact that you do have a second show that you started with our dear friend Alias
I do.
called Elder Dragon Hijinks. I got to go on now a couple of times, and it's hella
Yeah.
fun. Oh my
Yeah.
god,
Thank you.
it's the exact spirit of BS Commander with my friends,
I know
which I
the fact
love.
that anybody puts up with me just blows my mind still to this day.
You know what? I was talking to Alias, and I'm just like, how did you tie her down? Getting Olivia to
She
commit to
literally just
literally
pitched me out of
anything.
nowhere. She's just like, "Do you want to play Commander with me like all the time?" I was like, "Yeah, all right."
Yeah, but
And then I
she's
was
like
like, "Oh, you
formal
mean
and
like a stick?"
businesslike and has a whole thing.
I know.
And
I'm have stickers off at the
having
printers right now.
having tried to do something with you before.
I think it was because I didn't have to think about it, right? Like
Mm,
it was one of those. No, you just show up and clown on yourself and or someone else. Like,
just sit and play
well, I mean, I
Commander.
do that anyway,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
it's
Yeah,
basically
because it's not that different from your stream. It's just
No.
your same group of friends, just with a different branded
To
stuff.
an extent, and I mean, like, we definitely have a different vibe, right? Like,
Yes.
the game is still the primary focus, and hijinks on the stream, it's
The
holding
stream.
it's just it's desperately clinging on to second. It's basically shit talking and puns for spots 1 and 2, and
Yeah.
then, like, "Oh, yeah, we're just playing the game to give ourselves an excuse to hang out and
That's
people to
literally
hang."
your stream, is, like, your
I
chat and your
know,
friends.
which is also probably why, like, well, I mean, it doesn't get taken seriously, and that's okay. Like,
Yeah.
it's not a bastion of high-powered play, right? Like,
No.
we do dumb shit.
It's like, I think the swear filter is basically off on this episode now. I
I mean,
tried.
I can stop, I just didn't know, so I mean, I can scale it
I
back.
told you before we started.
Oh, you did?
I straight up said like 4 times.
No, you didn't.
Yeah. You and Tappy are the ones I have to warn the most. Because, Tappy is a loose cannon.
Yeah. I just
We love
cuss a
her to
lot.
death.
Oh, I
She's
know.
one of the dearest friends I have,
How many
but
times
boy.
did your headphones start doing the from when she got loud?
Yeah,
I'm
let's
only
let's talk
asking
about
because
that.
of the amount of time she and I have shared a living space for a con, like, I
Oh
know.
god. Dude, the one day I crashed with you, I know what the Tappy experience is like, and that's called
Oh,
a
you mean in
beer.
Reno?
Yeah, no, in LA. I guess we crashed together in Reno too,
Oh,
but
that's right. Yeah. Oh,
yeah,
Jesus,
the
that
hotel
was
in LA when just like Sid with a
yeah.
beer at like 7:30 in the morning, and I'm like, "Woman, we literally just rolled out of bed," and she's like, "Yeah,"
Oh, well,
and I'm
no,
like,
no, that part's normal. I thought you just meant, like, decibels. She was pretty
"Oh
good.
yeah, no," but her decibel level uh
Honestly,
we
I
call
need
it calling India because you can hear her from India without the phone.
amazing.
And like a gigantic massive hair. Oh my
Yeah.
god,
Oh my
all the
gosh, she does
hair
have
all
hair.
over the place.
Yeah, I mean, the no, hijinks is
But
great,
yeah,
and
so what's up with hijinks? How'd it
it's
going?
we're
How's
just
that show going?
I mean, we're just trying to do our best, we just wanna get cool people and
And
have
also
games
me.
and shut up. Can you stop with this whole, like, "I guess I'll be included"? You literally had people wearing your this show's shirt,
How
like,
cool
on
was
mask.
that?
I I know, so quit pretending like you haven't made it or like nobody knows you are. Nobody invites Shiva. Dude, chill.
It was the coolest thing that's ever happened to
Oh
me.
my god.
Walking in there and seeing like 12 people wearing my t-shirt, and then Cedric being like, "Yo, your shirt's sold out." And I'm like,
Yo, so yeah, will you please stop with this whole like, "Man, nobody invites me to anything. I'm not cool." Shut up, dude.
I love all of you listeners. Thank you so much. But yeah, dude, Elder Dragon Hijinks, so it's hella fun.
Thank
And
you.
like it's such a neat it's just I love it because I can just sit there and like play. Dude, that game with Joey where I just sent him to like the Shadow Realm with 50,000. I think somebody decided it was
It was
26,000 points.
25,600 damage. Yeah,
It
that
was
was
the
when I was in
greatest win I've
Vegas and,
ever
like,
had.
I wasn't even hungover, I was just tired, like,
Yeah, you were like,
I didn't even go for it the night before at
yeah, you
the
weren't even at
festival.
home. You were at like somebody
I
else's
was in
house.
yeah, I was in an Airbnb in Las Vegas, and I was like, "I gotta film on." It was so funny, I'm, like, packing everything up for him, he's like, "Why are you taking all this stuff?" I was like, "'Cause I have to film on."
And
He's
I'm
like, "Are
sure
you
he's
serious?"
looking at you like,
I was
"What are
like,
you
"I'm dead
doing?"
serious." He's like, "How are you gonna do that?" I was like, "Don't worry about it, I'm gonna make it work."
Poor
I get
Alias
home,
has to
it's like
edit this stuff.
3:30 in the morning, I was like, "I have to get up and film in, like, 6 hours."
Oh my god. Poor Kidler's just like,
It's my He's fine, he slept the entire no, he don't say poor Kibler, he's fine. Get
"Oh
outta
no,
here.
what will this Hall of Famer do? I guess he'll have to sleep."
Sleep more, that's what he did. I was the one downstairs being as quiet as I possibly could and just exhausted and
I don't
like,
know. I beat him with
"Sure."
my Corval deck. I feel real good about it.
Oh boy.
Just because I was like, I needed to know that I can play Magic and get to real pro.
We were playtesting stuff at the house, and I beat him once with, like, I think he was playing Dragon, and I had something, I just had, like, the absolute perfect hand, and I was like, "Oh my god, I can get him." And so I did, and I was just, like, beaming the rest of the day. I was like,
Yeah.
"It's one more Hall of Famer I beat." Oh my gosh. I had 1 day of glory on, what was it? The Theros early access. Jerry
PPR.
Thompson, Jerry built me a
Yes.
deck.
Oh,
And
well,
it was
there you go.
the mono white life gain LOL, I'm gonna dunk on you. And so I was like, sure, I don't know. He's like, here's what you do. You play this, and you're off to the races. And I was like, he's like, you can take it from there. I was like, I don't think you know who
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
talking
it's like
about. I was like,
some of us are not Jerry Thompson.
I do not play like this. And he's just like, no. Trust me, it's fine. So he sent that to me. I ended up against Nassif.
Oh, geez.
Got him. I played Mengucci, got him. And like I think there was one other person it was. I can't remember who, but I clowned some
That
pros.
was like your
They were
greatest triumph.
it was like the only thing I was like, isn't this like someone in my chat was like, is that Gabe Nassif? I was like, I don't know. The username says yellow hat. I have no idea what that means. And they're like, Olivia. I was like, still doesn't mean anything to me.
Literally
Like,
one of the greatest players of all time.
I know. And that's my, like, that was even Kibler and I, we laugh about that all the time. It's just like, even when I met him, I'm like, yeah, I know he did some, like, he streams Hearthstone and he played Pro Tour for a little while. Like, that was the sum total of my knowledge. Our first interaction
One of my favorite, like, the
our
one
first
Magic
interaction
guy.
was me saying, like, that looks like a really good piece of seared tuna. Like, it was, I had no clue who this dude was.
Dude, it's weird because Kibler's like one of my favorite Magic players of all time. Right? It's like, because he plays the type of decks I want. He plays dragons and big. In a world where every pro is a hardcore control player, he's the guy who sit there and said, you know what's cool? 8/8 for 8. Let's go. And I'm like, you are the timmiest guy who's ever lived. And like, all of us scrubs are living here ramping out in, it's like living the ramp dream through Kibler.
Yeah.
But that's why when like I met him in Vegas at the great GP that brought us all back,
Right.
and I was sitting there, I'm like, that's Brian Kibler? What's he doing here?
Right.
And I was like, no, this is my space. This is where I'm okay. I'm the king here. You don't get to come and take my space.
Oh man.
But
He was saying how funny it was to like be sitting at tables with us and people would come up to like me and Sydney and Scott and like all these other commander folks, ask for signatures and then just walk away. I had no idea who he was. And I'm like,
not a clue.
Like,
no one cares.
+1 to a Magic event before. I was like, oh, get used to it.
Yeah, but you're in the back of the room now. This is where we.
Like,
you are not the king here,
commander.
But it was also funny though.
Yeah,
it's funny because that event there was a whole bunch of like very high level pros who were sitting there like trying out Commander for the first time.
Yeah, it was sweet.
Yeah, but it was also like funny to see what they thought of Commander deck. But like Sam Black came up to me and Gavin and like he had a deck in his hand and it was like this blue black control just like monster. I'm like, you're gonna play this and have literally no friends and nobody will ever play with you again. And he's like, I just picked a bunch of cards that I thought were fun and interesting and tactical. I'm like, no, you don't understand, bro. We're a format that plays like doofy stuff, right? Like, this is not.
Do you understand what Rooted Commander means?
Yeah, like remember all the cards you used to derisively throw away? That's our format.
That shoebox, that's where I got my rares. Thank you. Yeah. It's funny. I feel that, I mean, it's with us too sometimes, right? Like we're not immune to this, but we still have that, like, there are people that still have that underdog attitude. Like we're the redheaded stepchild. Like that we're the
forgotten children.
Not even the forgotten children. We're still that format that's like, yeah, but you're for the nerds, right? Like it's just
we're like the kids who are not cool enough to play real Magic.
Right. Yeah. We're still the ones like making stuff up at the kitchen.
Well, because I remember there was somebody who once described Commander as it's a game based on Magic the Gathering. And I was like, oh.
Right. Yeah, but we kind of like, sorry everybody that is not into Commander that's listening, though I don't know why you would be. We're Magic now.
No, we are literally Magic. Like
we're the entry point. We're the big, like,
it was Reno that showed me, remember?
We are the big, like, Command Zone's out here dunking videos for 1 million+ views. Like, that's Magic.
Dude,
that's an entry point.
I knew that the tide had shifted because at GP LA in 16 or whatever, or 15 something, we're all sitting in the food court outside because there's no room in the main hall for us.
Yep.
And then at Reno 2019, or right before lockdown, the last GP, there are more people in the Command Zone than in the main event. And I was like, we are, this is us now. Like, this is my ship. I'm the captain. You know.
And I mean, I'm interested to see how the Pro Tour coming back and OP like
Sure.
returning has an effect on things. But honestly, like we had that discussion in the rules committee when we were talking about the legendary rule change and of just like just clarifying and like condensing the rules, where it was like, oh well, everybody knows that your legendary creature has to be commander. It's like, no, that's actually not true at all. Like, you can't just assume that someone who bought a precon has read the CR. Like, that's not how this works. And they see that it's a legendary creature. Maybe they didn't read the back of the box and just broke the damn thing open and started playing with their friends. Like, we can't just assume that people have the ingrained knowledge because they came from Magic, from somewhere else in Magic, and came to Commander. That's not how it works anymore. And I think one of the things that like we as advisors and the RC as a governing body need to like remember is that we're where people start now, not where they end up after something else.
This is no longer an invested players format. This is just Magic.
I mean, it's the invested and the new format all at the same time,
well,
which is of course one of the other reasons why we have, the discourse, not the bad kind, the discourse online that we do of like how best to approach sitting at a table with someone who's literally never touched anything but a precon, or and what they know is what they've watched. And these precons now that just slap. They're real good. They're very cohesive. They absolutely hold their own at a table.
I mean, have you ever tried to go back to the 2011 precons and try to play with them?
No, because that means I'd have to break the seals on them, and I'm too scared, so I won't. But I managed to snag a bunch of those after I got into the game, and I'm never opening them because I'm terrified. But like, we can't, we can't necessarily begrudge people either for the floor of power coming up, because the entry point, we used to say, oh, just grab a precon, you'll have to tweak it, but
now it's like, not
anymore. Some of those will just wipe a table down.
Oh my god, dude, the ones that came out with freaking Kaldheim, the AC one or the Elf one,
right?
The Elf deck is nutty. Like, it's just out of the box. Like, I remember I went on Twitter and I complained. I complained that I was like, I've been trying to build this and this Sea Serpent or Elves or whatever deck for a long time, and you guys literally in the box built a better one than I could have done collecting over, or like the zombie deck, the Wilhelm zombie deck, which just cleans the floor with my decades of Grimgrin. And I'm like, what do I even do if you guys are just out of the box building a better deck than I can?
And and again, like, that's why we can't really begrudge new players for kind of having this mindset of like, oh, well, the power level, like, base is here. Like, that's where it is. Much
the floor has been
much as we may want to like now reside in the basement instead of the first floor, which it's become. Like, we gotta
be realistic.
I think the thing is that Commander's experiencing growing pains. We got real big, and it is something where not only did we get big, but we had, what it feels like is like the system before worked because it was very small insular community. Like, you went to the GeoCity site and hope it didn't crash every quarter. It inevitably did. And you'd have to wait like a day to find out what got banned, if anything. And that's not the case anymore. And that we just are too big for that. And it's kind of like, how do we address where things are? There's obviously so much more uptake of the format, both from WotC and from the player base. So, all of our like, oh, well, it's the spirit of the format. Oh, it's just, how we do this, and it's here for relaxing. It's like, well, people also have different ideas of what relaxing is. There are people that play stacks to relax because they're having a good time, and that's their amount. You say that, but we can't just like.
I'm not going to judge. I'm not here to judge.
You can't, because there are people that probably think you're absolutely off the rocker for having.
Oh, there are guys who get on me all the time because they're like, what do you mean you don't have 12 pieces of like counter spells in your deck? How can you play without interacting? And I'm like,
oh, people dunk on me for not running enough land all the time. I don't care. I'm having fun. I'd rather be.
The thing, it's all about playing to the table you're at.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that's why it's, the people are so are not necessarily incorrect, I would say, and saying like, well, you can't just deflect with Rule Zero, the spirit of the format. Not that Rule Zero is always a deflection, but like, we're in this weird spot of like, okay, but where are we exactly? What is our best path forward where we can be like, this is a place of nuance? And when
Yes.
there's a lot of people here, it makes it very difficult to pass that along. That's okay. Again, the growing pains. It's just gonna take a little time for
Yeah, we have to
the
figure
kind
out
of this
who we
that
are, what do we
that
want, what do we
spirit thing
represent.
to permeate a much larger
Sure.
audience.
I mean, I think you're exactly right in that there's this sense that we have to like one of the problems that I hear a lot from people is basically like you guys have a lot of unspoken rules and unspoken ideas and stuff
There's a
that's
lot of
just
social mores by
like
telephone.
yeah, they're just
Yep,
things that have been like ossified in Commander for
yep.
since it was Sheldon's, play group of 12 people back in 2003 or something. And I'm like, okay, we need to either write these down or we need to abandon them and figure out how do we make Commander how do we express to people what Commander should be without telling them what they has to be. And that's a complicated, nuanced
Yeah,
discussion. We can't
yeah.
just sit and throw it out there for a minute.
And
But
the
it's
thing is that no matter that discussion taking place and what the end result of it is, it's going to be one that takes a long time to get absorbed, like osmosis out to the rest of the community. Like no matter
yes.
what thoughtful, discerning decision is made on what the path forward is, it's still all going to take time. And
But it is wild to me that one of the things like and because you and I have talked about this before where we're like, yeah, that we sit at tables where people have no idea who the rules committee is, let alone who the CAG is, let alone who I am. But there's
good,
people
they
who like,
shouldn't. They don't
no,
need we're the
there's no reason for
sprinkles
us.
on
No.
top. We are not necessary
Right.
nor important to enjoy the game.
No, and the thing that's wild to me though is like there are folks who will be joining like pro players who are like, deeply invested in 60 card magic who are coming to Commander, building a deck for the first time, and they'll post something like, yo, why is primetime banned? And I'm
I
like,
know, right?
bro, bro. Hang on a second.
Yeah.
Or like they'll come at it with like a 60 card analysis, thought
Mhm.
about like, power level structures and all these things. I'm like,
Like,
okay,
we
I appreciate where you're coming from. Let me help you understand where you're going to
right. I
because
think,
prime time
you
is
know,
not okay.
they say that the CW has been like, Commander's broken. I don't think it is. I think it's already been solved. I think everything about it has been solved in a different format, right? Like
Yeah.
we know what the optimal land percentage is going to be. We know that
Sure.
it's correct. If you want to have the most, like control over your game, that you need to run this kind of interaction, that you need to run this many ramp
Sure, we
spells.
can give you a template, fine.
Yeah, but what fun is
Where's
that?
the
Like
fun?
and I think that that's part of the thing is that there is a desire, I think, from a lot of new players to really like hone their skills on it, and that it's not out of any kind of malice or saying that people are wrong. It's that they want to give themselves some semblance of order and understanding as to like, okay, well, this is how best to approach it. And I think that side of the analysis, while totally valid, is so different from where a lot of people maybe that came into Commander after being elsewhere of like, no, this is the place where you don't have to do that, and that's what's so
Exactly.
great about it. And I
Right.
think that push and pull is kind of where so much of this tension is of like, no, but it's optimal to have this template and do this. It's like,
Yeah, sure.
sure,
But are you trying to optimize?
yeah, exactly, but is that your goal? Is like,
Like,
the beginning of
I'm
this format was literally the escape
yeah.
of
It's
the
like,
hard
look,
and
man.
fast. This is the formula that works. It's like, but what if we just got to fuck around with stuff?
Yeah, like, what if I just played Squirrel Tribal? What if I'm playing Tenderfoot Dryad or,
Why
whatever?
not run all Lilianas with 26 lands? Touch the cornballer. You know best.
God damn it. What the
It's an Arrested Development reference.
Jesus Christ, Olivia.
But seriously, like there's and that's the thing is like nobody's wrong there, right? Like if having that kind of templated, here's how I can hone my best experience for myself is the goal and is the impetus there. You can't really like knock somebody and say, well, you're wrong and not playing correctly for doing that. Like
Getting
that is a
around to that
non-starter. They're 100% right. They're playing Commander the way it's best for them. The problem I think is when it becomes well, this is how everybody else should play it, right? Like it's like, okay, you figured your analysis and what's good for you. Dope. Run
getting
with that.
around to that idea though, that notion that like, yo, it's okay if somebody wants to play hyper optimized
Yeah.
super power level commander. that took me a long time
Mm,
to come around to, just because I was like, no, this is this is my happy place. This is
right.
where I can sit and play like Lana War Elves into Juggernaut or whatever
And that's the
garbage
thing
trash
is,
I want
like,
to.
so many of those big hyper-powered things are other people's happy place too, and they don't maybe get the chance to do that in other formats. That is, again, what we're, this refuge from is the very strict formulaic, well, that's not the best thing against the current meta, so it's not worth doing. It is the place where you can explore, find some absolutely broken, busted in half, that man had a family, combo, strategy, synergy, whatever it may be, and be able to execute it. Because the singleton gives you some variance. Obviously, we could get into the whole tutor discussion, but we won't because we know it's a thing and we're just going to ignore it for the sake of this conversation. But like, we've got variance, we've got, this incredibly wide swath of cards to access. Like, we don't want to gatekeep people building what they've always wanted to play. The
Right.
big struggle for us becomes, I'm so happy you found what you love to do. Let me help you find the right pod because mine may not
That's
be the one.
exactly it.
That's what it is.
That's 100% it. Where it's
Yeah.
like, yo, look, that might not be what I want to do,
Yeah.
but I want you to be happy and I want you to be
Yeah.
able to find people who want to do this with you. And
Yeah.
that's why when I was like at Richmond and I was watching all these people playing CDH pods and like counterspelling and doing all this crap, I'm
Mhm.
like, yes, look, it's working. You are at the table you should be
They
at
want
playing
that
the game you
they
want.
want that
Go.
super sick, I know what I'm doing, high-paced interaction that
God
my
bless. Go
simple
do
tiny
it.
brain just can't handle.
Yeah.
Godspeed.
And I'm
I
like, I just want to play big fat creatures. And they're like,
Yeah,
let's go. And I'm
yeah,
like, yes.
yeah,
I think that is a good place to kind of call this is like, you know what? I'm glad people are finding the games they want to find.
yeah,
I'm hoping that we can find a way to get less people to yell at each other about what we should be playing and more about Joe, just find the table you should be at. That's
yeah.
all.
And I mean, like, again, we say that, of course, it sounds
Because
very prescriptive. Easier said than done. We know.
yeah.
We know. It sucks. If you're
Yeah.
locked into one thing, I mean, that is one of the spots where spell tables kind of sweet, right? Or just
Right.
playing online, or like, how many creators have discords now where there are pods firing on the
Yeah.
daily? A lot. I know it happens in mine. I know it happens in probably hijinks too. So like, you can find like-minded communities, right? Like, if you come to hijinks, you're probably not going to see a lot of CDH pods firing because that's not the audience we're catering to, and that's fine.
Right.
Like, I don't like I and it's okay. And if you go in and say like, hey, I do have a CDH thing and a bunch of other people do, then go play the game, have the best time. Like, ugh.
Seriously.
It's the communication. Like, the best and worst part about Commander is the social part of the format. It is absolutely amazing sitting down with a pot of strangers and having a great time, or a pot of your best friends and having a great time. And it absolutely honks when you sit down at a table and there's problems communicating and people are intimidating, or it's just intimidating being in that kind of social situation.
Yeah.
It is the edge of the sword on which we ride or die. Like, it is the
That's
fact,
the
the
factest of
it being
facts.
social is the best part, and it's also probably the most difficult thing about it, is that you've got to put yourself out there. There's gonna be miscommunications. It's gonna
Yeah.
be awkward sometimes,
Turns
and
out
oh damn, you got to power through it.
in a
Yep.
pot of 4 people, you gotta talk to people sometimes, and
Right.
that's a real rough one.
Yep. We get it.
Anyways,
We understand.
ah,
Well, you've
thank you for
got at
joining me.
least an hour of rambling. Hopefully, you can turn
You
this
know
into
what,
something
dude?
cohesive.
I didn't know I was signed up for Olivia's lecture time, but you had things to say, and I'm here to listen, so thank you so much for joining me, my dear,
Scripted
dear
comments, I
friend.
guess.
I love having you on. I love you as a person. I'm glad
Oh,
we're
thanks,
friends.
man. Me
But if
too.
folks wanted to find you, your stuff, whatevs, where can they go?
I mean, if they're so misguided as to go looking for me, they can find me on Twitter by my last name, Gobert-Hicks, not Goober-Thicks. It's
Goberthix.
GOBERTHICKS. It's my handle on Instagram as well. I'm on Twitch TV at Affinity Artifacts. And finally, you can see the Commander show that Ailey and I host on her channel on YouTube. You can also just search for Elder Dragon Hijinks and you will find us.
Sweet. As always, you can find me at Gear Gears. You can find the show every Tuesday on Cool Stuff Inc. or any podcatcher you got, wherever podcasts are sold, or at YouTube whenever I get around to uploading it. Thank you, EK, for all the work you've done in helping me do that.
Yay,
I love him. He's saved my show, not gonna lie. And as always, my friends, it is not magic without the gathering, and we will see you next time.